opportunity to hooey with you before this meeting started. Was planning on passing it off to you, but I'm here to support you however I can. Is Franny here? Oh, she is. Okay.
Yeah, I was just in the RCA meeting, which was an hour and a half, so I'm literally trying to have lunch. So if you want to go ahead and leave this off, that's totally okay with me.
Sure thing. Yeah. So this is a Puna Action Committee meeting. I can see we have 3 members of the committee, 4 members of the committee here. So we haven't met quorum. I don't know that we were really expecting to meet quorum, and that's okay. What that means is that we're going to skip over a couple things in the agenda. Approval of the minutes is not going to be happening at this meeting, that kind of thing, but we will be taking public testimony. So I know we have Hannah here. Were you interested in testifying as well, Indy?
Totally,
okay.
yeah.
We have Hannah and Indy here in our in-person site. Others that are interested in testifying, if you could please write in the chat or raise your hand, and I'll write your name down here so that we don't miss you. Indy, why don't we start with you since you were the first one here?
Oh my gosh, that's so much pressure. Okay, well, I guess I'll first like to start with just being thankful to be a part of this process and to see so many citizens show up, and including Hannah here, for everybody to want to continue building a stronger and more resilient community. I'm not even a part of Puna. I'm more in Hamakua area, but I do certainly want to learn how this group can actuate some things that might help the Puna area that can also translate to the Hamakua area where I'm at, especially when it comes to farming and housing, and making those revisions in a heartfelt, heart-centered way, so that we can kind of maybe get out of the space of feeling occupied and feeling hurt and angry. Everyone's feeling a little bit like that, but like shifting more to a place of possibility and ideas and creativity and love. Oh my God, if that triggers people, maybe not love. Pono, like for us to be more pono and figuring out solutions, and maybe also forgiving. Maybe sometimes people are corrupt and they don't know it. So let's forgive people. And it's not even corruption. Maybe it's just incentives were bad, right? And we got to re-examine our incentives and community. So thank you guys for showing up. I hope to support this effort and maybe meet more in person. I love these CDP meetings online, but maybe we can meet in person. We just did one on Thursday. Councilwoman Ashley showed up at that Seaview lawn, and we had 73 people show up. It was awesome. I'm sure some other people remember, but we did so much in 2 hours, along with honoring a Kupuna and his prayer, and along with, it was awesome. Let's try to meet more in person, and hopefully it's not even on me. Like, we all can take leadership in that, and meeting in person and collaborating in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next I'm going to ask Hannah if you're ready to testify.
I am, but I don't even really know what the agenda is, and I don't know if my testimony is relevant. So if someone could tell me what's going on a little bit in this meeting. I saw that there was an agenda available.
Hannah, can I recommend something?
Yes.
So this public comment, in my interpretation, I was a commissioner in a city, a human relations commissioner. The beginning part of the meeting, the agenda, is open public comment. So you can sing a song, you could say a poem. You don't have to even talk about the city, you know, but you could talk about.
I'd rather be more relevant, because as you pointed out, so the way the county council operates, the way the PCDP action committee and steering committee used to operate, was that you could speak in advance, or you could wait till your agenda item came up and you could speak in connection with that. And I would rather do that, because I think that what I have to say will have much more impact.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
Cool.
That'd be great. Yeah, and on the agenda this evening, or today, we're talking about the Pahoa Transit Hub and Library. So if you're interested in that topic, we have some folks here that are planning to present and share some information. So
I'm very grateful, because this was a primary recommendation from the PCDP. And now, after all these years, we have a wonderful mass transit person we actually organized a mass transit group when we didn't have mass transit to either airport. So this is a new era, thanks to, I'm not remembering his name, but thanks to the new MTA person. So the only disappointment I have is that we've had many discussions about this. If you look at the history, how many times this has been discussed. So I'm hoping that something will come to fruition, and I'm very pleased that it's happening. I will make the point, I've already submitted something when the announcement came out about the library and the mass transit, that I'm hoping that they will also be starting to focus some direction up into my area where there is not even a restroom. Glenwood Park is one of the main bus stops on Highway 11, and there is not even a restroom because they stole the water catchment several years ago and it's never been replaced. So they're talking about all these refinements at bus stops and so forth, and yet we don't have access to a restroom at the Glenwood Mass Transit
Oh, wow.
stop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, alrighty, and next I'd like to invite Robert Golden to testify if you're ready.
Aloha.
And for folks that just aloha, I'm sorry. For folks that just filtered in, if you're interested in testifying, please raise your hand or please write in the chat for us so we can see you. Sorry, Robert, you have the floor.
Thank you. So just briefly about me, so I get familiar with, so you can get familiar with me. I moved here from New York 10 years ago. I live in Leilani Estates. Fortunately, our home is not inundated by the lava. I'm co-founded Puna Rising website for Puna, and I'm president of Lower Puna Rising, and very involved in this community. I'm home. I feel Puna is my home. New York feels strange and foreign now to me. And I just would like to share a couple of thoughts with you. I guess I'm speaking to some extent to business on numbers 2 and 3, but I do want to give you some comments. Having come from New York and really trying to learn the ways here on the island of Hawaii, I'm really surprised how centralized government is on this island. And that's why I'm really excited about this opportunity of the Puna Community Development Action Committee as a way of sort of decentralizing and getting more citizens involved. But I'm really concerned that from my vantage point in the last few years, particularly since the lava flow, this Puna CDP has not been very active. And I sort of find it telling that you said at the beginning that there wasn't quorum here. And I would really like the CDP to play a much more active, assertive role in our community, so that we feel like we're having some influence on county policy. So I've been in conversation actually with Heather Kimball, president of the county council. She's interested in introducing the idea of neighborhood boards, and maybe we can continue this work of strengthening our decentralization here of government and getting more people involved. So that's just a plea I have, and I'll do anything to support that effort. Thank you.
Mahalo. Next on my list here, I have Madeline. Madeline, are you interested in testifying?
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you. I also wanted to echo Robert's statement about the desire to hopefully be able to make some change here by meeting quorum, and I'm curious about what can be done in order to accomplish that. And then also I'm hoping to see on next meeting's agenda the topic of intentional communities added as a discussion point and how the county work to support intentional communities.
Mahalo. Thank you. All right. Next I have, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, Linnell. Were you requesting to testify? Oh, no, you're muted, by the way.
I'm just listening and taking notes, but thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for being here. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I skipped over Elliot. I have you on my list too. Hi, thank you for being here.
Aloha. Can you mute? So I'm sitting here with Madeline and a group here from Kumakahi Village, was part of the meeting on Thursday, just gathering to talk about issues specific to the Puna community. And yeah, what's really resonant to me and what I'd love to see brought to more discussion of the zoning planning for future is kind of the acknowledgement of these intentional communities and the different way of living, specifically in Lava Zone 1 and 2, in places that were, disaster prone and where temporary housing is not really allowable as a means of zoning designation, and really bringing some awareness about, creative solutions from a zoning perspective that can really help align better with the way people are living here in Puna, that's already in existence. So there isn't so much fear, and the county and the community can come together more and acknowledge some of these issues that are known and kind of not talked about. And then, unfortunately, through discussions, whether it be through neighbors or specific aspects of county policy, certain aspects of codes are enforced on other people more so than they are, on the general community. And I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on creating a path for these places to exist in a way that's acknowledged by the county, and not in a way that has to be in the shadows and only when specific issues are brought up or when something is needed to bring the county and an organization together, that all of these things are kind of brought through. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of acknowledgement to be made about the different types of structures that can be built that are movable. And because people in Lava Zone 1 and 2 just aren't able to get insurance or get bank loans, and then yet the building policies and zoning policies haven't really adapted to acknowledge these types of places that are really grounded in sustainability and trying to live cooperatively and Pono with the Aina. And I think the meeting on Thursday was a really good example of bringing Hawaiian culture together and resiliency hubs and disaster relief and farming and housing. And my understanding is that the Planning Commission is in the process of kind of rewriting their plan for the next 20 years. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done and a lot of input that the people here in Puna have. And so I'm here to kind of provide a voice for that and, hope to continue that dialogue. Thank you.
Mahalo. Hopefully folks can hear me a little better now. I just turned our phone to face me here. Is there anybody else here that wanted to share some public comment that maybe didn't raise their hand earlier?
Well, I'd like to speak something.
Oh, yes, Thomas. Hi, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. A simple thing I want to say to address what Elliot just brought up. Zoning and how that works with residential, commercial, agricultural. I'd like to introduce the idea that you could create a new zoning classification that would recognize these things that are happening and changing. It would be something like nonprofit sustainable community. And that would be a zoning category that would allow these things, that allow these communities to contribute culturally, as we proceed here. So I think that's my simple comment.
Mahalo.
Okay.
And just a reminder to if anybody maybe misses their chance to speak at this point, there will be an opportunity to speak during the agenda item as well. And we have folks here tonight giving a presentation. If you have any questions for them, that's welcome too. With that being said, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the agenda here. And we're going to move on. The first item of business is the Pahoa Transit Hub and Library presentation. The County of Hawaii Planning Department and Mass Transit Agency are initiating the planning phase of a transit hub in the Pahoa region to include coordination with the Hawaii State Public Library System on the location of a new state library in the area. Action Committee members in the community will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback on this project. And to share with us tonight, we have folks that are working on the project here. So welcome.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Melissa May. I will be starting the presentation on behalf of our team, and there's several of us here as well. So let me just get started and share my screen if I can. So we really appreciate you folks showing up and making time for this presentation. We're kind of making the rounds for this project right now. We were in Maku'u Farmers Market this weekend and saw a lot of people from the community there, and we're doing this. And then we have another community meeting this week as well. So I will plug that shortly as we get into the presentation. But today, I just wanted to kind of give you guys an overview of this project and where it's at and how you can get involved and take any questions you have. So I'm Melissa May. I'm a planner. I work for SSFM. We are the consultant working for the county mass transit agency. And we also have here today the administrator of MTA, John Ando. And we are also collaborating with the county planning department. I see April here. The Hawaii State Public Library System, Mallory is here as well. And from my team, we have Austin Drake, who's the project manager for the project, and Jennifer Scheffel, the environmental lead, and Cheryl Soon, who's the transportation practice leader from our company. So several of us here. And then the project is also funded in part through the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. So these are all the teaming partners. So I'll just give a quick overview of the project and the schedule. So this project has been in the works and kind of called for quite a while, as people in the room have alluded to. It's been identified as a need for several years now, going as far back as the multimodal master plan in 2018 and beyond. It was actually also identified in the Puna CDP, as Hannah mentioned. So this community really has flagged the need for a transit hub in Puna and in Pahoa in particular for quite some time now. So this transit and multimodal master plan kind of set the framework for the island's transit system, and it identified 5 goals, including one to create transportation hubs and bus stops with amenities to provide rider comfort and safety, and to help support community and village gathering places. So as part of that, it recommended a hub and spoke system for each district, and that led to the proposal for the transit hub in Pahoa for the Puna district. So now in the current project, the project has been funded through the planning phase. So we are narrowing down potential sites for the transit hub, and we're exploring what other uses could be combined with the transit hub, including the public library, daycare, and other uses that support transit-oriented development. So there's a QR code if you want to read more about the master plan there. And just real briefly, the hub and spoke transit idea is about routing transportation through a central hub, and then there's spokes going in and out of the hub. And it basically makes service more efficient than if long routes had to stop multiple times. So the county has been transitioning to this over the past few years. And so how did we get here today? There's been some development since 2019. MTA started initiating public outreach about a transit hub in Pahoa. Back in early 2019, there were a couple community meetings held. 4 possible locations were proposed. Some additional ones came up. And in total, they ended up with 13 sites from that process. 2 were removed from consideration for feasibility reasons. And then in our current effort, our team has conducted suitability analysis of the remaining 11 sites, and we kind of narrowed it down to 3 preferred sites. And Austin's going to share those with you in a little bit. And then another recent development in the current project is the library and transit hub co-location. So what happened was the library has also been looking to develop a new library in Pahoa for some time. And so there was a discussion about combining the two into one site. And this supports, transit-oriented development, which includes walkable communities and being able to reach community destinations within a short walk or bike, and just supports the livability in the area in general. So they are exploring this idea of combining the transit hub and the library as well as other community uses, and the state was able to chip in some funding for that from their transit-oriented development funding. So real briefly, the history of the library process. There was an environmental assessment prepared in 2021 for the Pahoa Public Library. It identified 6 potential sites. However, further investigation made it clear that these sites would not be feasible for the public library to proceed with the design phase for various reasons. And so now that led to the current conversations about co-location with the transit hub. So the overall goals of the project that we're doing right now is to support comfort and safety for transit riders, especially in the Puna district. We also want to make sure that the project supports and promotes other uses such as walking and biking, and that it provides amenities and gathering spaces for the community, including the new library. And the tasks that we are contracted to do include evaluating the potential sites and narrowing them down to the top 3, which we're going to share with you today, doing conceptual design alternatives, infrastructure evaluation, and preliminary cost estimates for the 3 sites, which is the next step, and then doing an environmental assessment. And all along this process, there's community engagement built in. So what we've done so far, we've started reaching out to different community associations, elected officials. This is one of those meetings that we're doing today to try to get the word out and invite people's participation. We did the pop-up event yesterday at the farmers market, and we are also putting a display up at the existing Pahoa Public Library about the project where people can read about it and provide input and leave their comments. And then we've also got a project website and have been spreading the word through social media, radio, and flyering. And if you guys have other suggestions for how to get the word out, particularly to the Pahoa Puna community, definitely be happy to hear those. And here's just a snapshot of the overall project schedule. We're right here right now. We're just doing our first round of community meetings and pop-up events. And we'll be moving into preparing the draft EA as we narrow down the final sites to evaluate in that. And we'll be coming out around the summertime for the next round of community outreach before there's a environmental assessment goes to be finalized. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Austin to give you a little overview of the site selection process.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so, as Melissa mentioned, we did have a couple of public meetings previously about this. And, some of the key things that we heard is that this hub should enhance Pahoa Town. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in the downtown, but it's critical that, through the spoken hub system, there are routes that connect downtown to the retail areas that we see out near Puna Kai that's developing. We heard that there's a lack of parking in Pahoa Town, and there's very little land available in order to build more parking. So, once again, if the hub goes further west or out towards the Puna Kai area, that will need routes that go back into town that can help support those businesses and connect the 2 areas. Since there's about a mile in between them. And yeah, so basically that shuttle system would be key. Okay, next slide. So here's an overview of the sites that we've been looking at with this most recent suitability analysis. And if we'll start kind of from the top left of the screen, the first one is site number 2. which is the property just to the Hilo side of the new Puna Kai Shopping Center. So a little less than 10 acres. The next site is the one that's just on the Pahoa side of Puna Kai, site number 8. That's also about 10 acres, so similar in size. And if you look across the road there, you'll have site number 10, which is actually 2 parcels that would need to be combined in this case. And it's pretty much directly across from Puna Kai. If we go a little bit further towards Pahoa, site number 9 is at the corner of Pa'a Street, or the transfer station road, and Keapahoa Road. And so that's a parcel with, there's multiple parcels owned by the same family, and that one's a little over 5 acres. And across the street from that, we have site 11, which is almost 9 acres. And that would be 2 parcels that would be combined there. And then we get further in towards Pahoa Town, and we have site number 12. It's kind of in the middle, I would say. And this one is a little over 5 acres. It's in more of a residential area there. There's 3 parcels included in this site. And then as we start to get more in the heart of Pahoa, we've got site number 13, which is across from the post office road. And it's a combination of multiple parcels there, as you can kind of see. And site number 7 is actually a portion of site number 13, and it's a much smaller parcel, and so that's why the color of the of the square there is different, because it's smaller than what we're going to need. And the same thing goes for site number 4, which is where the old Lukines and old Akibono Theater used to be. There's also that parcel. It's a little over 3 acres. And then finally, we have site number 5, which would be a portion of the Pahoa District Park that was fairly recently constructed. And that's kind of just the overview of all the sites that we were considering with this effort. Okay, go to the next slide, please. Some of the criteria we were looking at were, things like the size, configuration, ease of acquisition. The size and configuration, notably so that we could support, something like a transit hub and all the bus circulation and parking that would be required, along with these other community uses that we've been talking about, such as the public library and other facilities that may benefit Pahoa. Location and visibility were important. We wanted it to be something that could easily be seen from the main roadways, and that people could find, and it would be an attractive place to go. Vehicle access obviously was very important with regard to buses and vehicles, but just as important is the pedestrian and the bicycle access, as we want this to be able to attract non-motor vehicle visitors as well. The infrastructure was something that we wanted to look at, whether it was roads and sidewalks or water, sewer infrastructure, electricity, all that we took into account. The volcanic hazard risk, all these areas are actually in zone 2, so they're kind of on equal footing as that's concerned. And then a total cost was consideration as well, and kind of took into account multiple different things as you look at the property and where it's located. Okay, next slide. And so after we went through that initial evaluation, there were 3 sites that kind of rose to the top as the most preferred. And these are site 2, 8, and 9, all fairly close to the Puna Kai Shopping Center, and all on the west side of Pahoa Village Road. Site number 2 is already partially cleared, and there's a gravel parking lot that's kind of used as an overflow for the Puna Kai Shopping Center. And then site number 8 on the other side is also very large parcel at 10 acres and a good shape. Site number 9 isn't as big, but it's got a good location, and there's some potential there for different access for buses versus vehicles and pedestrians. So it has potential as well to be a good site. Next slide, please. Okay, here's just a little closer image of site number 2. So you can see where that certain areas already been cleared out for parking, and it's got a nice connectivity to the Puna Kai Shopping Center. Go to the next slide. And so this is just a very conceptual possible layout of some of the components that we've been looking at to be included in the site. And really this is for spatial orientation to make sure that the site is large enough to accommodate whatever may be put in the future, whether it's all constructed in the beginning or whether it comes in phases. And there's lots of different possibilities here. And so this is just to really give a kind of representation of what could be. What's nice about site number 2 is that as you come into Pahoa from the roundabout, this could be kind of a gateway type of feature for Pahoa, if the library is one of the first things you're able to see. Also the buses, you could quickly get the buses off the road and into the transit hub without them having to go into the more congested area fronting Puna Kai. And so that was a benefit of that. And plus just the connectivity in general to the areas surrounding it is good from a pedestrian standpoint. And then, a couple of the cons with this one, as is the cons with pretty much all of these, is there's a lack of raised sidewalks through this area. Those would have to be constructed. And there's the existing signal at Kahakai Boulevard and Pahoa Village Road is already a bit congested, and inserting buses into the mix could cause some problems. But we'll be doing traffic studies as part of the EA process to figure out what kind of mitigation will be needed to resolve all those. Next slide, please. And here's the site number 8, just on the Pahoa side of Puna Kai. You can see it's a mostly undeveloped lot, very similar in size to site number 2. There is an existing structure on the site, and then there's this kind of a street view frontage there. And so site number 8, similar. These graphics, just wanted to be clear, are just to generally represent some of the different components you might see on it. As we get into the next phase, we'll actually be doing a conceptual design for each one of these sites that'll be specific as to how these different elements could be laid out and how they'd be integrated with each other as well as the road. So this is more for general size representation, and even that is subject to change as we get into more detail. With this one, it's slightly separated from Puna Kai, so it's on the other side. So there may not be quite as much congestion as you get into this area as there was with site number 2. It still has good street frontage, so that there's an opportunity to make the library and some of the other buildings and features, very visible to the public as they drive or walk or bike by. And it's also a single parcel, which would help hopefully with the potential land acquisition. And as with the cons, very similar to what I mentioned before. And the fact that this one is a little further removed from, the Puna Kai area, the pedestrian access isn't as favorable. So once again, the sidewalks and everything would need to be built out to help provide that connectivity. Next slide. And then finally, site number 9, as I mentioned, this is at the corner of the Transfer Station Road and Pahoa Village Road. This is multiple parcels that would need to be combined in order for us to actually have a large enough site to work with our potential uses. This also has some structures on it, and so that would need to be addressed if we move forward with this one. Go to the next slide. This one has adequate parcel size, so 5 acres, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but 5 acres was generally the minimum size that we were going to need to feel like we could incorporate the elements we would like to see. And so it does meet that criteria. This one also has good street frontage. It has frontage on two different roads, similar to site number 2. This provides some separation potential for the bus access versus the pedestrian and other general vehicles that may be utilizing the site. So that's a good opportunity. And on the cons, like I said, it's a little smaller. Sidewalks would have to be extended down to this area. And then the existing structures could increase the acquisition cost of the parcel. Okay, next slide. Okay, and so a few things that we heard with regard to the transit hub design features through our previous outreach is that the size and appearance should reflect Pahoa, and that will be taken into account through the architectural details. And as we look at it conceptually, and then ultimately once it goes into design down the road, then that will also need to be taken into consideration. Want to make sure that it's ADA compliant, with all the parking as well as the walkways and everything to give priority to children and pedestrians. Vision Zero was brought up as something that's important to need to be considered with the needs of the disabled community. Lighting and security were a huge concern for folks to make sure that it's a safe place to gather and it can be secured when after hours. Softening the area with landscaping, especially if the areas where there's buses, and it's just a nice combination of having the street frontage with the buildings, but being able to soften some of the paved areas and the vehicle areas with landscaping. And considering how much it rains in Pahoa, just making sure orientation of the shelters and the buildings and the eaves and everything makes sense with regard to the wind and rain to make sure there's dry spaces. And there was the mention of a stool type design for seating to try to mitigate sleeping on benches. Okay. And here is basically that same graphic that you saw overlaid on some of the sites earlier. And so this is just a very general spatial diagram, just to kind of show how these may be laid out on the site. These will be rearranged many times as we go through the process. And some of these are just ideas of what could be there. It may be that some of them, after we go through the process of going through the community and the EA process, that not all these will be included, or maybe there'll be different types of uses. But the library and the transit hub are kind of the main features that you'll see here. Number one being the transit hub, and that size may vary depending on what all amenities we end up in it. Number two, there is just it's a bus loop showing the bus parking. The third item, the big yellow circle there being the library, and then you see the multiple other smaller uses on the site. Okay, next slide. And just to give some picture examples of what some of those were. So the pavilion, this is a Ohio bandstand in Hilo that shows a gathering place there, which a lot of folks thought would be good to have something like that in Pahoa as well. A Goodwill drop-off box. There's one at Puna now. That's a possible feature. Bike parking and storage, potentially bike share, like we have in Hilo. Possibly those would be good ways to utilize the site. Next slide. And then as far as the library goes, these are some ideas that came about with the expanded physical collection of books, the reading areas, having spaces for programs for kids, and technology and digital learning is becoming much more popular and prevalent in libraries now. So having a place in Pahoa for that. And then also community meeting rooms, large enough to host events for public gatherings. Okay. Next slide. And so the next steps, hand it back over to Melissa for that.
Okay, I'll just do a quick wrap up. Appreciate everyone's patience as we get through this. Here is a QR code as well as the project website. Definitely encourage all of you to check it out. You can sign up for email updates. You can look at these graphics that we're showing more closely and even add your comments to them. And then you can also visit the pop-up display at the Pahoa Hub Public Library and go to our community meeting, which is actually this week. I'm going to put that flyer up real quick so you can see it. Just a moment here. It's not giving me an option. Give me 1 second. Okay, I think I got it. So you may have hopefully seen these flyers around town, but this is what it looks like. We have the meeting this week, March 1st, Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Pahoa Neighborhood Facility. So everyone's welcome to come to that and spread the word to anyone that you think might be interested. So with that, let me go back to the presentation. Just want to say mahalo for listening, and we are here to take any questions you have and to take your comments. We really appreciate all the advocacy that the Puna CDP Action Committee has shown, for transit in this area, and want to help realize the vision that you folks have for the area. So look forward to hearing your comments. Okay, so Heather, should we facilitate the Q&A, or is that something that you do as part of these?
I'm open to either, whichever is easier. I did notice there were a lot of questions coming into the chat. I wanted to mention though, Indy here, community member here, wants to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you both for that presentation and the insight in what you guys are doing and what you're planning. Really appreciate that and your thoroughness. My curiosity, I know you guys are doing an event already this Thursday, but I'm curious if there's an opportunity for the community to make it a little bit more like a civic hackathon, so people can, come together and make different presentations and maybe even put raffles towards which ideas they like the best and make it something. Oh, you can see me over here. So I just encouraging creating something that's more like regenerative. In the sense of like letting folks also share their ideas and their wisdom, because I just know from the people I know on this call, there's some really smart people who know about building ecologically, building things that are sustainable, building things that are native to the native plants that we need, also for food and nutrition, and maybe even for pets, right, too. Anyways, so I encourage creating more of like a regenerative and inclusive space for ideas to flow, because you guys got ideas, but there's also great ideas in the community here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right, this is a great time to put forward those ideas, and we threw out some examples of the kind of things that could go on the site, but we are open to any and all. And there's kind of a virtual forum for that on the project website where people can throw out ideas and people can respond to those ideas on the website. But the community meeting is going to provide another forum for that. And yeah, I'd love to hear what people have in mind for the site. This project is only going to take it through like the conceptual design phase, so there will be more opportunities as it goes into full design as well. But it's a good time to put all those things on the table. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I realized that our audio is connected to our phone in here, and so when folks talk in the room, it's just showing me if you don't have gallery view, so apologies for that. Melissa, is it helpful if I read some of the questions that are in the chat here?
Oh, sure, yeah. I saw a lot coming in as well.
And we also have a raised hand here too. Leilani's raised her hand.
Okay.
Why don't we take
let's take Leilani
now, and I'll the chat.
Sounds good. Yeah. Hi, Leilani.
Aloha, thank you for that presentation. It was very informative. I don't know if it was mentioned, and I missed it, but are these different, I see most of it is private landowners. Are these people aware that they're contenders in this process? And then the other thing I just wanted to say is that I noticed somebody in the chat had talked about using, sorry, I can't remember what it was, but I had written down here, material consideration for construction. Oh, it was due to the weather, you know, that where we have, and just to keep in mind that we don't want to use something that's just gonna rot in 2 years because of our location. And I think that was it. Thank you.
Sure. So yeah, the property owners have all been reached out to. I think they've been responsive to varying degrees, but that's part of what was considered in the criteria for the site selection. I don't know, Austin, feel free to jump in if you want to expand on that, but I know that they have been all contacted. So, and then I'm sorry, the second part was, did I miss it? Did I miss the second part of your question?
No. I
Okay.
was just, the comment was to consider the best.
Oh, the building materials, correct. Yeah.
Building materials, and then I also want to support what was uplifted as far as Susie's comment, using natives if we're going to put plants in there, which I would just 1000% support.
Great. Thank you. Okay, you want to?
Okay, so I'll read this question from the chat for you. This person asks, who/what entity is providing the funding for development of this hub?
Okay, I think that John actually spoke to that in the chat. John, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. We have the State of Hawaii Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, Hawaii Public Library System, Federal Transit Administration, and the County of Hawaii General Excise Tax Fund.
Great. Hopefully that answered the
Hello.
question.
And yeah, sorry if I'm repeating questions that have already been answered in the chat too, but some folks don't have access to the chat, which is kind of why I'm bringing them up again, so that folks, if they have the same question, can have that answered. This other question asks, why is the bus loop smaller than the parking lot?
I put that these are just conceptual designs, and the designs will be refined once a site is selected.
Right. At this point, they're kind of bubbles for that purpose. Got to apply the engineering to the site. So, okay, I see another comment about asking about kind of the reasoning for co-locating the transit hub and library on the same site, and you know that the library may be appropriate in a different location. You know, I don't know the whole backstory of why the previously considered sites for the library were ruled out, but maybe that's something that Mallory could speak to, and if not, we'll be happy to look into it. Mallory, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at that last planning study, but I think when we did the earlier planning study, we did focus on any government-owned properties at that time, and the locations all required substantial infrastructure build out for the library by itself. And so we're looking at the opportunity to pair with the TOD transit hub as an opportunity to leverage infrastructure build out and also be closer to areas where people will be transiting through. And so we felt that this was a good opportunity to work with the county.
Right.
And I would like to also add that the whole intent of the partnership with the library is to make the transit hub a community space. Transit is a part of a community, and as we build livable communities that don't necessarily require the use of an automobile, by having libraries, shopping, drugstores, dry cleaning, daycare, bikes, bike lanes, everything within a walkable distance of a transit hub, people could start living car-free and taking advantage of the benefits that this transit hub can offer. And that's the whole goal of this. It's very common in Europe for these type of designs.
Okay. Did I miss other comments in the chat, Heather? Let's see, who is the group that the one that just came in is, who is the group that is conducting the environmental assessment? Will it include an archaeological inventory study? So we are the consultants for the project, which includes the EA. And I believe the scope does include an archaeological study. Is that correct, Austin? Or Jen? Jen is our environmental lead. Okay, Jen, you're on mute.
All right. Yes, there is an archaeological study and a cultural impact study included as part of the environmental assessment work. Whether or not an archaeological inventory survey is actually completed will depend on what SHPD requires us to do.
Okay.
If I could just chime in with a little reminder here too, that we've got 4 minutes left until 3 o'clock. So we're kind of running short on time.
Okay.
Maybe at the end of this, if you folks wouldn't mind sharing your contact info. So if there's any questions that we're missing here, we can go back and there's folks can go back and contact you.
Sure, we can drop it in the chat, and definitely we'll take more input through the website and at the community meeting too. So
great. Susie, I think we can take your question. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, it's not really a question, but just a hope and a desire that the buildings are, you know, solarized or something, completely addressing the state's goal for energy efficiency by whatever it is, 2040 or something, so that the buildings are all solar run or something, zero waste. If we can be innovative and forward thinking in that element of the design. Thank you.
absolutely.
I'm actually going to squeeze in one more question here. Linnell is asking, what happens if something is found during the archaeological study?
So if something is identified during the archaeological study, there's a lot of consultation that happens with State Historic Preservation Division. And ultimately, there can be any, type of mitigation for whatever was found, but that would all be done with consultation with SHPD.
Mahalo. Okay, so we're getting close to our time here now. It's 2 minutes left. There were some other items on the agenda for today to talk about a meeting schedule and recruitments for new AC members. And I guess I'll just include this little plug that we have currently have 5 AC members seated on this board. And we have been sending out press releases for new membership, but haven't been receiving a lot of applications. What is needed to join? Oh, mahalo, there's a link in the chat. Thank you, folks. So it's on the mayor's office website, and you can click that link and apply there. The applications are processed by the mayor's office, and when we receive a good amount, we like to try to batch our new applicants when they come in, because we do an orientation for everybody. That's kind of time intensive for staff if we bring in people piecemeal. So once we get a good pool of applicants, we can move forward with bringing people onto the board. But the best way of getting the word out is through networks, talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends, finding people in other community groups that you work with that might be interested. Tends to be very, very effective with getting AC members. So appreciate all the help that we can get. I guess with that being said, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's just coming on 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock now. Mahalo everybody for being here. Thank you, Action Committee members. It's really good to see your faces again. I know it's been a while since we've hosted an AC meeting, so glad you're here, and I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you to the folks at SSFM, Melissa, Austin, Jen, John, Mallory. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing. This is all really great.
Thanks, Heather, and thanks everybody. Oh,
I got one thing to say to everybody. We're definitely gonna do another civic action rally in March. And last time Councilwoman Ashley Kirkowitz showed up, and hopefully some of you guys show up, and maybe some of the current CDP committee members also show up. Let's try to meet in person in Puna. It's such a beautiful place, and what a wonderful way to celebrate. We can have some food, some music, and we can collaborate a little bit in that space.
And how about Upper Puna, Matt?
That would be cool.
Kleinfelder.
Sure. If anybody wants
Upper
to host
Puna.
us too, that'd be cool too. We could talk, you know. So Madeline on this talk, please, everybody, just share your email with Madeline Whitehill here, and that'll help.
Okay. Mahalo, everybody. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. Take care.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank
so
you for
much.
coming.
Thanks for navigating.
Yeah.
I like flashed something on your thing.
I saw that. Yeah, thank you.
I'm a teacher. I can't help it. I have to use a whiteboard, you know?
And we love the word love and regenerative.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yes. And you know,